Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to the 25th audio file in the audiocast series known as the Q News Patriot. I'm the Q News Patriot. My name is SGAnon. It is wonderful to be back with you again. We have a lot to talk about. I apologize these last couple of days. It's been a bit tenuous on my end. Things have been in flux in my personal life, in flux in my work life, and I've also been communicating a little bit with the person I call my mentor. I have a great deal more clarity that I think I can bring to you all this evening. I have spent a tremendous amount of time in research over these last few days. It's no secret that I was up all night about 2 or 3 nights ago for exactly that. We are living the most amazing time. We are living in a time where a plan that many of us feel has gone on too long continues to yield us productive, positive results, and it continues to drive us ever closer to that precipice point that Q has referenced at least twice within the drops. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to it. I'd like to go ahead and clarify something up for you all. It's something that I had to clarify for myself, and I guess I should open the discussion with perhaps a bit of an apology. Excuse me. It was my understanding, based on what was told to me, that from here on we would be listening to a single point of contact for truth. That point was not meant to point at particular truthers or potential operators within the truth movement, or it wasn't to disparage anyone either. It was simply what I was told, and I was told that that individual was supposed to be President Donald J. Trump. Reason that that was passed on to me, I believe, is because based on what my mentor understood at the time, the election and the immediate 2 to 3 days afterward, which again, we are only in the third day now, but the immediate time period afterward was to be that time of declass and disclosure. Now, obviously that was incorrect. We've not had declass to the level that we would all like. We've certainly not had disclosure or the military stepping in and doing anything with regards to the United States midterms, at least as of yet, although we have plenty of open source evidence to point to the military being extraordinarily active. So they are doing jobs. They are conducting operations. They are seeing small operation mission objectives through. But we didn't have that pivotal moment that I understood and that I believe many of all of you out there were hoping for. So that being said, we're going to spin off a little bit on this topic because this gave me some pause. And when things didn't pan out the way that it was my understanding that they were going to pan out, I began to get frustrated with my mentor. And so I did a great deal of research. I was on the ACON boards. I was on a couple of other deep web forums. One of them is Kiwi something, and another one was related to memes. But these are all offshoots of different posts that you can find across ACON in various threads and topics. I do most of my research opened up in the Tor browser because some of those links from the ACON boards link directly to the deep web. And so if you are in a standard browser, it doesn't link over simply because the encryption necessary is not there. So you have to be careful with this sort of thing. Tor is designed to preserve your anonymity and allow for a primarily safe browsing experience on the deep web or the dark web or whatever you want to call it. But not knowing how to tell the call signs for possible malicious sites or places where adware and spyware and malware hide out. Yet, if you don't know that stuff, you can cause yourself problems. So I do most of my research that way, and one of the things I found was a discussion thread that went for a number of days, actually. Began in early October. And it looked like the discussion had gone up until just a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago. And so on this particular thread, there was an individual poster that went by the username 0p Anon. I took that to read as OP Anon, or possibly Operator Anon. We know from the Q post that there is a user interactive within the Q boards that at one point in time was referenced directly by Q, and essentially was confirmed without confirming that that individual held some sort of clearance or connection. So this discussion thread that I found was discussing the need for Intel to be essentially throttled and controlled. And one of the lines in this post was liars create problems. And so understanding that, we know and have known for a very long time that the movement has been infiltrated at different levels with folks who are in fact deep state plants and controlled compensated assets. But I got the impression from the next line in this post, which was sensationalism is dangerous, that a great deal of the quote infiltration, if you will, into the movement in the last 12 months, certainly in the last 6 months, is really just individuals who have some sort of tenuous connection or maybe a bit of an exaggerated connection to things, and they're simply sensationalists. It does not mean that there's nefariousness at play. It certainly does not mean that they're attempting to work against the movement. As a matter of fact, I believe a lot of those sorts of individuals very much want the show to end just as we all do. But when you gain followings and you are equipped to influence a large portion of the consciousness, sometimes that sensationalism can cause problems. There are operational specifics that are dependent in real time on what the mass population, especially on the awakened side of the movement, or on the population, the awakened side, are doing and thinking and believing. There are points within this conflict where we cannot move to the next phase until a clear understanding is achieved within the general truth movement, so that we have congealment moving forward. So, as you all would expect, I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulties here. Give me just one moment. I'm not quite out of the woods with this cough. Just one moment. All right, much better. Sorry about that. Coming back to where we were, I went and did my due diligence and began asking questions. Why were we told this? What do you know? Is there anything that you can tell me? And so, after a little bit of digging, I think on the other end of things, what my mentor and I have agreed upon as being the most likely, most probable scenario here is that we've all been lied to. And I know that's a shock for many of you out there, sarcasm intended, but genuinely, the truth movement for the better part of a year has been fed from legitimate intel sources purposeful half-truths. The truther movement has been given essentially the destination and no map for the journey. In many cases, there have been slight details about operational specifics that were changed to protect the integrity of the operation. This has been necessary because of what we were just talking about a moment ago with infiltration within the movement, whether that be nefarious or not, causing problems. This was accounted for all the way back in November of 2020 by the Alliance Command. And so the intel that we've all been receiving now for the better part of 2 years has been incomplete by design. It has been enough to give us crumbs to cause us to research and check things, but not so much that we can compromise the integrity of next steps. And so if you think about it, that really is very much like the Q posts themselves. Enough information to show you the world or show you the light, but not so much information that you are able to not participate within the discussion. You must be actively involved to gain the understanding. So that is what all of this has been about this entire journey, right? And so I am pleased to report that, according to my mentor, we had a complete blackout on genuine, true intel between the dates of 11/3, 11/4 up to today. Actually, this particular day is symbolic within this movement and appears to have been, excuse me, the day where we are going to be moving into possible next steps. Now, I know that that's a large thing to say, and I know that I've said that a couple of times in these past weeks. Consider that timelines necessarily move and shift and change. And as my mentor and I have discovered by doing a little bit of digging of our own, it appears that nearly all of the timelines that we've been given since November of 2020, certainly since mid 2021 up till now, have been purposefully incomplete to protect the integrity of what has been going on. So let's talk a little bit about today. Today is the 1111th day since the first Q post. Today is Armistice Day. In history, it is Veterans Day in the United States. Today is the anniversary of the 11th, or excuse me, of the end of World War I. The armistice was reached on the 11th month of the 11th day, or the 11th day of the 11th month, and it was signed at the 11th hour. A very symbolic day. For those of us that know our history, World War I remains the sole time until this point right now that we're living, the sole time in history where the Q-Patriot alliance, the White Hat alliance within the governments and militaries around the world at that time, were able to disappoint the plans of the cabal for continued war. The Great War began in 1914. The cabal had every intention to have that conflict be an 8 to 10 year conflict. It was designed to do exactly what all wars are designed to do: kill off a large number of the population, create a ton of money out of nowhere that could then be legally laundered through governments by necessity, and shift the balance of power to their liking. We were able to stop them in World War I before they had achieved the end goals that they had desired. All other wars have ended only when the cabal had achieved what they intended to set out for. World War I is the singular point in history before this point where we were able to change the plan for the earth. It's no coincidence that John F. Kennedy's executive order, which was designed to return the United States dollar to an asset-backed currency status, was Executive Order 1111-0. It is a symbolic day. There's a reason that Kennedy was assassinated on 11/22. That day will be significant this month as well. In what way, I'm not able to say fully at this time. I don't really know 100% of how it will be significant. But what I do understand is that, or from what I do understand, it is going to be a significant anniversary. We have lived a process that has brought many of us to the ends of our rope. we have lived a process that has inflicted a great deal of suffering on the world. We have lived through this process awake because we took the time and found the internal centeredness to search for knowledge and genuinely absorb it. And it has not made this journey any fun. We've had wins along the way. We've certainly had public takedowns in certain key areas, Russia being one of those areas. But we have not blown the lid off the keg, so to speak, for a worldwide coordinated operation. I can't speak to when that is going to happen. What I can speak to is that we have extremely important symbolism in the next 12 days, and that we're going to want to pay attention. From what my mentor told me in the short discussion we had to have a blackout to control security of what happened over the last week to 10 days. Because we did not have the sort of reveal that I was understanding that we would have, I have been told, and I don't know myself at this point, I even question this a little bit, but I have been told that some of the events which happened today tied directly into what is about to happen here in the United States. We've all seen the short video and the pictures highlighted from the National Guard buses in front of the White House here in the US. It's my understanding that those buses were large-scale prisoner transports. It's my understanding that those buses are being, that those prisoners are being relocated for the next phase of tribunals that many of them have to face. Remember, we have individuals who will receive several military tribunals before justice is exacted upon them, simply because of the gravity of their crimes. Many of them in the United States were complicit in the installation of a foreign Manchurian power in the lawful government of the United States, in the governmental entity of the United States, which caused the lawful government to need to be insulated and to be publicly stepped aside and put into the background. Many of those same individuals were also complicit in taking money from organizations such as Pfizer, Moderna, and others to stonewall, assist in the passage of, or participate in nefarious legislative lawfare and gamesmanship, which forced the COVID-19 tyranny onto the American public and paved the way for death shots to be rolled out not only to the American public but to all the world, which have killed a lot of people. And so these individuals, many of them, will have several levels of justice which will need to be filmed and documented prior to holding a true public tribunal for them and their criminal peers. It is also my understanding, based on some research I was doing just this afternoon, that we had some sort of command and control general quarters, if you will, given today, which resulted in several commanding officers of this movement of the United States military traveling suddenly to Florida. What was discussed, I can only speculate on. I'm certain that it had to be important. Tying right into that, I believe we were actually told that today by the commander-in-chief himself. Donald Trump today posted a truth. Actually, he retruthed a post from a gentleman named Pastor Dr. Daryl Scott. This post states, Trump is held to a standard no other politician has ever been held to. If he endorses 100 candidates and all 100 don't win overwhelmingly, the media will try to spin it as, quote, failure, end quote. Any good Anon knows numerical repetition and highlighted words and quotations are a great deal of how these hidden messages are carried to us in plain sight. And so I began to look around and research on this, and what I found was a Q drop which contained the word failure. By the way, there's only, I think, 3 to 5 Q drops that contain the word failure. I'd have to go back and check, but it's not very many. It's Q drop 3579, which has a delta of today. This post was November 11th of 2019, a 3-year delta. Curiously, the Q post, which dropped today, 4962, November the 11th of 2022, had a timestamp that was almost identical, except it wasn't. And so what I mean by that is the drop that came out today hit the board at 8:45 and 15 seconds, whereas this drop from November 11th, 3 years ago, hit the board at 4:15 and 45 seconds. This drop reads /ag image failure, route DOD 111118. America will be unified again, all in capitals. Future proves past, all in capitals. Route DOD, I'm extrapolating from this, is probably a command conduit, and I believe that it has to do with communication, internal military communication. Q gives us windows into some of how these individuals communicate at different points along the way to encourage the Anons in their continued research forward. And so this drop containing that word failure and 45 retruthing that where failure was highlighted seemed very interesting to me. What was more interesting to me is when I looked up 100 code military on DuckDuckGo, which is not a search engine I recommend, by the way, but it was one that was easily accessible at the time. It brings up something called the Lieber Code, the first modern codification of the laws of war. I thought this was fascinating. We know that the laws of war have governed this entire operation, along with the Constitution of the United States and the United States Code. So let me read you what this brought up. On April the 24th of 1863, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, was the first United States president to be involved in this movement known as Q, issued General Order Number 100, instructions for the government of the armies of the United States in the field. The government of the armies of the United States in the field. The Lieber Code set out rules of conduct during hostilities for Union soldiers throughout the U.S. Civil War. Even today, it remains the basis of most regulations of the Laws of War Manual for the United States and is referred to in the foreword to the Department of Defense Laws of War Manual. The Lieber Code inspired other countries to adopt similar rules for their militaries and was used as a template for international efforts in the late 19th century to codify the laws and customs of war everywhere. That is fascinating. This document compelled militaries around the world onto the same page. Certainly seems relevant, doesn't it? The laws of war, a general order is an order given from the commanding officer for all officers in the chain of command to carry to all foot soldiers and troops and operational assets. A general order is not an opinion. A general order is, we are now going this way. Q tells us future proves past many times. Q tells us that military is the only way. Even though Q didn't tell us exactly how military is the only way, we do know that that has been said at least a couple of times by Q. Today we have 45 highlighting the number 100 in a retruth that seems to be connected to a post with a delta of today that refers to bringing in the DoD and transferring command. This would go right along with some flight radar trackers I saw today, which caught several military birds, all very important planes, seemingly flying in the same direction, which was to the Floridian Peninsula. I believe the announcement that we are all expecting on the 15th of November could be very big for this movement. What that announcement will be is anyone's guess. POTUS will be insulated regardless of any announcements that are being made. But we know that when these operations actually go down, POTUS will be abroad. So will this announcement be made directly from Mar-a-Lago? Will this announcement be made from an airborne office that is made to look like Mar-a-Lago? I would say at this point, it's anyone's guess. The rhetoric from the Q posts very recently has really stepped up. We have Q outright saying the words taking control. Then we have Q following up with a post from today, reminding us who the invisible enemy is, reminding us of how the invisible enemy works, informing us of the truth. And then in all caps on the post, all capitalized letters, we have put an end to the endless. 1913. 1913 was the year the world fell into slavery. 1913 was the year these great in the United States of America were financially enslaved for generations. We are now 109, I believe, yes, 109 years removed from that date. We can look over that 109 years and see the sort of nefariousness and damage that has been done to the earth. And as Q says, we must all work moving forward to put an end to the endless. A great deal of that, and especially the heavy lifting involved in that, is being done and has already been done by some of the greatest heroes that humanity will ever know. We have them to thank for that. Still, our job to be connected and to be part of this movement is to focus on truth and to spread that truth with individuals within our sphere without causing consternation. A man convinced against his will be of the same opinion still. And so we must be careful about how we approach this. We must be delicate, understanding that everyone will wake up in a different way, and certainly at a different level of sensitivity to the truth. What we do know is that 94% of the population of the free peoples of the world will be 100% behind the Q operation by the time we arrive at the end of this movie. The end could be in 4 days. It could be in 11 days. Perhaps it will take longer than that. We don't know. My thoughts on that are simply as follows. The United States midterm election was allowed to happen to highlight to the sleeping normies that election fraud is very real. It was also allowed to happen for individuals who had committed treason in 2020 to be permitted to repeat that treason. Q tells us that everything must be done twice. The good book says where two or more are gathered together, referring to things being done on earth and in heaven. The number 2 is significant. You have 2 sides to your body. We live in a multi-layered reality where you have duality as part of that. Every coin has two sides. There is a dark and a light. There is a good and an evil. There is an earth and a heaven. The number two is significant, and we allowed these individuals to commit these crimes for a second time. In my mind, this solidifies the creation that they have assisted in, which is this subversion and insurrection of the lawful government of the United States. The other thing that it did, the midterms, is that it highlighted disinformation within the movement and also infiltrators within the movement. It highlighted infiltrators within the truth movement. It highlighted infiltrators and the political arena. It highlighted individuals who may be plants. It highlighted governors, congresspeople that we previously believed to be on our side. It allowed for the chips falling where they may at the state and local levels. It allowed for the bureaucratic agencies of the bankrupt corporate government that is currently masquerading as the lawful government of the United States to commit election crimes and treason and sedition, some of them for a second time and some of them for a first time. More than anything, it showed those of us watching exactly what happens when we attempt to vote ourselves out of a corrupt system that is algorithmically and precisely controlled. Try as we might, we cannot beat the computer. Try as we might, the number of votes inputted into the system will always be adjusted appropriately based on input and feedback from the program running the show. What difficulties the cheaters run into with electronic reporting can simply be made up for with large-scale mail-in ballot fraud. These individuals may be idiots, but they're not entirely stupid. Q says these people are stupid, and I'm sure at certain levels they very much are. But we have to remember that they are also worthy adversaries who have survived by being extraordinarily clever. And so it was put out in a Q post recently that white hats have secured many systems, but problems still remain. Some of those problems we've discussed on this cast so far. Some of those problems I don't think we've yet to see. Moving forward, I think that we need to be eyes wide open. I think we need to research intel that is given. I think we need to exercise our discernment and our trust in ourselves and our higher connection to the God force within, that creator of all. And more than anything, we should practice gratitude. I know that's difficult to hear, but this entire movement is purposed to change the resonant attitude of all of mankind to one of truth and acceptance and bring us out of an era of pain and into an era of plenty and prosperity. In order to do so, we have to focus at a higher level. Gratitude, genuine thankfulness is one of the highest emotional states that a human being can achieve. It could be likened to the love of God. It is pure and it carries light. These cockroaches can't survive in light. That's one of the reasons the awakening movement has been so extraordinarily effective at highlighting them. As we move higher in our emotional awareness of who we are and just how we arrived here as a civilization, we will make their existence impossible. This level of evil will never again be able to exist in this world because we will be too smart, too aware, too in control of ourselves to allow anyone to get away with these sorts of activities ever again. A great deal of what we've lived through has broken our molds. It has taken us out of fear programming that we didn't even know we were in. It has given us peace and contentment at levels we didn't know were possible. It has made us question things more than we've ever questioned anything in our lives. And it has given us such vulnerability and peace and trust that we've only experienced in truly loving relationships. We are going through the spectrum so that we may grow and expand and ascend. We are going through this movie because it is necessary to accomplish a litany of mission objectives that would take another hour to list and get into on this particular cast. I am sorry for any incorrect information that I've given. And I am also sorry that my understanding on the compartmentalization of intel was not full when I reported that we would only be receiving intel from one source. That source was supposed to have been President Donald J. Trump. According to my mentor at this time, things have changed a bit, but we still have infiltration that we're dealing with. And so I encourage each of you to look within as you listen to truthers. Listen to the expressions, the body language, the content being shared. Pay careful attention to sensationalism. Sensationalists are innocuous most of the time. Nefarious intention is not really there. And yet, if they have massive followings, they can still cause problems. And understand also as we move into the next phase that we are likely to continue with receiving half-truths for those of us that do have a genuine connection. It is simply necessary to protect things until we arrive at that point where all can be said at once. And we are rapidly approaching that point. This is the day that the Q clock runs out. For those unaware, the Q clock was a massive aggregation of dates and times hinted at in the Q boards that was put into a clock form. And it has accurately predicted a number of events in these last 2 years. A couple of those events were the step down of Jack Dorsey, the rebranding of Facebook as Meta, and the Mar-a-Lago raid. Today is the last day on that virtual timepiece. What we wake up to tomorrow could very well be just another day, or we could wake up to a remarkable level of disclosure. Curiously, 7 days spanned the period from 11/4, where I believe a Intel blackout was instituted, to 11/11 today, where I believe that it may have been lifted. 7 days also spans the period of time from the midterms on 11/8 to the announcement from President Trump on 11/15. There is yet another 7-day span from 11/15 to 11/22, which is the anniversary of the death of John F. Kennedy. Many of you have asked me my assessment of the John F. Kennedy situation. I do not believe President Kennedy Sr. survived the attack on him that day because there is a Q drop, and I'd like to read it for you, if I may. that references that exact event. The drop is Q drop 703, dropped on February the 10th of 2018 at 3:33 and 29 seconds a.m. in the middle of the night. Rest in peace, Mr. President JFK. Through your wisdom and strength, since your tragic death, Patriots have planned, installed, and by the grace of God activated the beam of light. We will forever remember your sacrifice. May you look down from above and continue to guide us as we ring the bell of freedom and destroy those who wish to sacrifice our children, our way of life, and our world. We, the people. Prayer said every day in the OO, the Operations Center. JFK, secret societies. Societies is spelled incorrectly. I believe that to be on purpose. Where we go one, we go all. Q. This has been a really, really long war. The military in the United States has waited for this moment for 60 years. They have waited for the time where we were able to capture every nefarious deed, every treasonous text, every seditious email and plan, every conspiracy planned in the middle of the night, all on record, all in plain view, in a simple, easy, mass storage capacity way. When the information age came upon us, they became dependent, just as we did. For the first time in history, we had a game board that was set with equal pieces on both sides. We are eviscerating them at every level. They have been drawn into a holy light that is being used for their destruction. There is absolutely nothing in this world that can stop what is coming. This is destiny for all of us. We are here in the world now, irrespective of your particular lens on spirituality. We are here in the world now to restore freedom for generations and generations and generations to come. We will be looked back on in history as the citizen army who was quintessential in the plan to topple the deep state apparatus and remove the throttling chokehold that this Luciferian mafia has had on the entire earth. We will be looked on as the generations of patriots, from the young to the old, who stuck out the long, arduous, grueling process of awakening and disinformation and intel being cut off and intel being incomplete and a psi war being raged in front of us and all of the lies. We will be looked at as the generation that stopped the lies of this world. If you're listening to this broadcast, you are truly one of the finest human beings alive. It is our job as digital warriors and soldiers to the cause of light to help lead our fellow man into peace and strength. We are well underway. There is a lot happening. Many of you pointed out today that above the United States, Um, it appeared as though hundreds and hundreds of military aircraft had their transponders turned off. While I can't directly corroborate that, I certainly believe that that would play right into a general order situation that we talked about earlier. This is a historic day and an historic moment. May we never forget the sacrifices that have been made by all your families and friends who you've lost, families and friends who have lost you, individuals who have passed due to the death shots, military service members killed in training accidents that were not training accidents, service members incinerated in underground tunnel explosions. May we never forget how we got here, and may we never forget what it took to break free. We have such an era of peace and joy that is coming very fast. I hope that this file has helped put each of you at a little bit of rest. And I hope that each of us gets a wonderful night's sleep, knowing that we are at a pivotal time. Trust the plan. Trust your instincts. Trust your discernment. Nothing can stop what's coming. And I hope that tonight, before you turn in for the evening, you step out under the majesty that is the firmament above, and that you look up in gratitude because you have gotten to watch the uncut version of the movie. All of us will eventually see the final editor's production, and that is just around the corner. Have a wonderful night, everyone. This is SGAnon. I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.